presentation by Dr. William Cala on the regional school project. Dr. Cala is a visiting professor of education here at Nazareth in the School of Education. And as many of you know, he was for many years the superintendent of the Fairport School District, and most recently was interim superintendent for the Rochester City School District. And so he's really well qualified to lead our discussion and analysis about the creation of really a unique kind of schooling. And we're very excited about this project. The project, the germination of this project did not just begin in Bill's head. Many things begin there. He's a dreamer, and that's a very good thing. But this notion of a regional school, or a med school as it's sometimes called, is finding force and value all around the country. And many of these schools are connected with colleges and universities, where there are strong and vital partnerships formed. So the germination of our connection at Nazareth College happened about a year ago at a meeting between Dr. Cala and Nazareth College President Don Braden, who's here somewhere in the audience today. Also a person of great vision. They discussed the possibility of a regional school. And when Don had connected me to Bill sometime late November, we invited Bill to meet with the School of Education faculty and staff. He gave a presentation there. When Bill left the City School District, we immediately hired him as a visiting professor with the intention of continuing to investigate this school project and to see where it may lead us. I need to be very clear and emphasize the fact that this is just in the very rudimentary planning stages at this point. This is just an idea. This is just a concept that we're investigating, and we're trying to see what kind of interest there is in the community, to gauge that interest, and to see if this would be a feasible project to move forward with. There have been there's been no determination of where such a school would be located yet. There's also been no determination on any of the details of such a school, including issues around funding, around issues of necessary regents variances, around issues of size and the like. So all of those remain open questions at this point, and hence the need for a beginning dialogue, which this will serve. In saying this, I would also say that there are many things that are lining up with this particular historical moment that make this a rather advantageous time for us to really investigate this school. I think the size of this crowd on a Monday afternoon on such a beautiful day, the fact that you can come in to a hot and chapel is indicative of the level of interest. And so I commend you for that and really appreciate your attendance. But there are many things which make this very important for us to investigate right now. We have inherited, as you are aware, forms of schooling for which no longer serve our social and educational purposes. And there needs to be some serious consideration of how we can alter our forms of schooling, not by minor forms of school reform, but by significant revising the purposes of education as we move into the 21st century. I actually had some prepared notes here. I could capture some of these. I did want to say that from the point of view of the School of Education, a regional school has enormous potential value. We prepare teachers at Nazareth College, many teachers, many fine teachers. A third of our undergraduates are in one teacher education program or another, and 800 of our graduate students are in teacher education programs. We prepare teachers, we're obligated to prepare teachers for schools as they exist. But we are also very much interested in preparing teachers who can be change agents for schools in terms of how they ought to be. And it would be very, very nice to have a school that we could partner with, a laboratory school, an experimental school, that would serve as a place where ideal kinds of practices, best practices are utilized every day, where this notion of experimentation is the watchword of our work. And so that's what's motivating us. We have outstanding partnerships across the region in rural and urban and suburban schools, but this would be a very nice special place where our teachers could be educated. So, in fact, and this will be my last point, I'll turn this over. I don't often have a captive audience, so I for a while. But John Dewey, the great John Dewey, 100 years ago, when he was developing his notion of a laboratory school at the University of Chicago, argued that just as the chemistry department needed its laboratory to prepare its chemists, so too did the School of Education need a laboratory school to prepare teachers. I think the same thing remains today, and for that reason, the School of Education is supportive of continuing to investigate this important idea. Bill has got a lot of interesting ideas to share with us today, and I'll turn it right over to him. He's also willing to engage in a question-answer period after his formal remarks, and then we'd also like to pass around a list, or at least have a way in which people who are interested in continuing the dialogue can do so. So enough of me. Let me introduce Bill Cala.
Okay, I think you can hear me now. All right. I'm absolutely tickled by the numbers that have come out here this afternoon. I'm just so pleased with it. About 3 years ago, Tom Fry, former county manager, who was sitting, where are you, Tom? I just saw you, right over here, and Brian Hetherington, lead counsel for Empire Justice, said, you know, you did this stuff with urban suburban, and what are the chances that we could talk to you about another idea? And we had a meeting over in Fairport, and the whole purpose of the meeting was to talk about deconcentrating poverty. How do we deconcentrate poverty? So from that conversation, we talked about the possibility of putting together a regional school where you deconcentrate poverty by having urban children and suburban children together, sort of a natural mix at what society looks like. We started the project and we started moving on this, and we had meetings with the city of Rochester and Manny Rivera, and as time had it, people moved on, and there was a loss of interest, and then because the players weren't there. And as Tim mentioned, serendipitously, the president and I had a conversation, and this came up, and we moved on from there. One of the questions that I get asked a lot about is like, okay, how is this school, how could it be different, and what would it look like? And that subscript on the first slide, I think, says it all. We try to make school as human as it can be. And to start off, and as people keep on walking in, I think it's a perfect opportunity for me to play a song for you with the words up on the screen by Tom Hunter. And I don't know if you know Tom Hunter, but Tom died in June, and Tom spent a lot of time in schools with kids and the human element of kids, building relationships. Keep that in mind when you hear this song and look at the lyrics, because that's really part of the core as to what this is all about, building relationships and making sure that we are making school as human as it can be.
This world is changing so fast we can't see what's coming before it arrives. To believe passing tests will make our kids ready is a gamble we make with their lives. How can we prepare our children for a world we cannot yet see? Oh, I think we work hard so they can become as human as they can be. I want know how to cry when a loss or a death made them sad. And I hope that they'll notice what's wrong and unjust, so they'll know when they get good and mad. How can we prepare our children for a world we cannot yet see? I think we work hard so they can become as human as they can be. Maria knows numbers, Teresa likes words, and Robert is good with his hands. Johnny learns best when he's standing and moving, and his teacher this year understands. How can we prepare our children for a world we cannot yet see? Oh, I think we work hard so they can become as human as they can be. And Paul has a classroom of 28 children. He thinks everyone is a star, but he's worried they'll learn everything that's required and not have a clue who they are. How can we prepare our children for a world we cannot yet see? Oh, I think we work hard so they can become as human as they can be. What happened to playing, to wonder and passion, to art and creativity? When test scores are all we have left, we have lost the heart of our humanity. How can we prepare our children for a world we cannot yet see? I think we work hard so they can become as human as they can be.
I hope that sets the tone for what it's all about humanity, and I'll get into the building relationships a little later. Oddly enough, the way schools look right now came about in a very strange way. In 1892, Charles Eliot got a group of 10 together, and in 3 days, in 3 small days, short days, they decided what schools were going to look like. That's the kind of thought that was put into it. And over 100 years later, we still have the same system that we had over 100 years ago. It's not what I would call the best way to reach kids. Marion Brady for the Center for Integrated Curriculum, who I've had a lot of conversations with about how to make curriculum relevant and how to make education relevant and what schools should look like, says that the reality we must understand if we want to pursue life, liberty, and happiness with any hope of success is a constantly evolving, systemically integrated whole. It should be modeled as such at all educational levels. And modeling has a lot to do with context, and it's the context of life. And I'll be talking about how context should be the driving factor of what education is, and how what we have right now is out of context. It answers a lot of the questions of what. We do a lot of what questioning in school. We have kids repeat what we want them to repeat. That's all what, and we're missing some very other important questions in the formula for learning. This is why disciplines fail and why schooling as it exists right now doesn't work. It ignores the integrated nature of reality that they attempt to explain. It neglects important areas of knowledge. And if it's, there goes the old axe, if it's not tested, it's not taught. So that's why we lose important parts of the curriculum, because it's not tested. The disciplines have no agreed upon overarching societal aim. When way back 100 years ago, public education was to have 3 purposes: to make good citizens, to make good people, and tap the skills, to grow the skills of the individual. And that's gone. It's a very linear, here's what we want you to know. We don't care what you're interested in, and we don't care what societal aim it has. There lacks criteria determining the relative importance of content. Again, as in 1892 there were 10 men in a room. Now we have a bunch of people in Albany, at least from New York State's perspective, that basically tell you what is important and what isn't important. It's not integrated. It's absolutely senseless to do what we do, how we teach what we teach, because it's not integrated. Science doesn't exist alone. Mathematics doesn't exist by itself. They all exist as part of some whole that we don't teach. And that's how we best learn. We best learn if we look at what we want to accomplish, what project we want to examine, and discover the math from there, discover the science from there, discover the writing from there, discover the language from there, from the project, not the other way around. Lacks mechanisms for forcing them to adapt to social change. Fail to disclose the negative consequences of actions based on their limited perspectives. Don't respect the brain's need for order and organization. I'll talk a little bit about the brain in a few moments. Often fare well or poorly, the disciplines fare well or poorly for political, economic, ideological reasons unrelated to their importance. And that's what No Child Left Behind is all about. It really ignores the important issues, and it's really political, economic, and ideological reasons why we move forward with No Child Left Behind. They fail to focus on research productively, and in fact ignore research. We know a lot of things about learning. We know a lot about brain research. We ignore it. We know a lot of things about concentration of poverty. We ignore it. We know a lot of things about health care. We ignore it. We know a lot of things about poverty. We ignore it. And we go after the simple solutions that don't solve any problem. We go after some silver bullet that doesn't answer a question and that absolutely will not produce better results for kids. Ignores complex moral and ethical issues. God forbid if you address moral and ethical issues in a classroom. But life is all about moral and ethical issues. Poverty in our country is immoral, and we don't do anything about it. It's always someone else's job. You know, I think it'd be interesting for some of you to look at the DNC blog on yesterday's article. Now, for the most part, the blogging is very positive, but you will see the closet bigots come out and look at all of the reasons why we can't do things, and we need to address those issues in school as a part of democracy. Democracy has been expunged from school, as is individual potential and individuality. I'll show you this next little clip that I just love about where schools have come and what can we be individual.
Hello, I'm Thomas Desjardins, a student at New Mexico State University's Creative Media Institute. As a member of an educational community, we've observed that as a result of the No Child Left Behind Act, teachers and administrators are shifting their educational paradigms to teach standardized tests, which some fear leads to standardized students.
As President of the United States, would you support the No Child Left Behind Act?
YouTube just has a never-ending vein of good stuff. Disciplines fail because they generate useless or marginally useless information. We're constantly using unreal settings in classrooms, and we don't look at real life problems. The disciplines lend themselves to instruction that vastly overworks written and short-term memory. And I give my classic example of when I took my boards for my doctorate. I had a stack of 3x5 cards, about this high, and it's an all-day exam. And I crammed those into my head night and day for several weeks. And I knew that the moment I took that test, everything would disappear very quickly. And I gave that information weeks. That's not learning. That is not learning. That's not what education is all about. It shouldn't be short-term memory. It should be long-term. Unduly compartmentalize the institution, making difficult or impossible the kind of broad professional dialogue essential to its health and evolution. There is no dialogue. We can't even get common planning time for teachers, let alone dialogue. So, I'm going to get, how will this, I'm just trying to make the case as to why the disciplines, as we know them, don't work very well in school. And what school should have as its basic points. And this regional project, as you know, in my head, with conversation with a lot of other people and looking at the research, has about 20 points that need to be included, which if you look at all of these, you will not see these 20 points in any school. And we need to look at these as a possibility of happening. I give you these first two tenets, and they're Marion Brady concepts about education. Education as a knowledge-organized system, and curriculum as a tool to make sense of the world. The whole issue of making sense of the world answers the questions who, what, when, where, and why. That's how we learn and things make sense to us. If we know why things happen, there's a connection to us and it's meaningful to us. But if we don't know why and we don't answer all those W questions, it's just, it's information that's passing on the station and it's meaningless to us. So the curriculum system has to be one that's based on who, what, when, where, and why. And I'll mention Tim McNamara is here, who's an eminent math teacher. I taught with him in between 1975 and 1978, or 1975 and 78 in Williamsville, and he's authored several books right now. But he sent me a couple of his books, and in the preface he talks about why kids don't get mathematics. And he talks about the importance of kids understanding, why am I doing this? And how that's more important than how to do it. Knowing why is more important than the actual how to do it. Tenet number 3, which I hit the clicker too soon for, is internships and shadowing. Internships are actually absolutely critical to the concept of this regional school, because it's learning by inquiry and it's learning by real life situations where we take children and tap their interests. If they want to work in a health clinic, if they want to work in a law office, if they want to work in a science lab, they need to develop an internship with their own input and our guidance, and their academics are built around those internships. That's where the strength of the program comes from, because it has context for them. I'll use that term over and over again. It has meaningful context. And when there's meaningful context, there's motivation to learn, and the synapses are connected because you understand the who, what, when, where, and why when you have an internship. Now, I'm all over the place on this, as you will notice. You'll see 20 points, and they're in no particular order of importance. But having lived as long as I have, and having been in education as long as I have, I also feel that there's an incredible value to music and art. And I don't know if any of you saw El Sistema. They did a 60-minute spread on it, where kids in Venezuela from 3, 4, 5 years old, everybody gets an instrument and they go into, they learn an instrument to be in an orchestra. And some of the greatest conductors in the world have come out of El Sistema. And the research over the years has been that these kids just do marvelously in school because of the music connection. So the Music for All piece of this whole thing, I was inspired by El Sistema, and then I saw one of our own Nazareth professors who teaches people how to, teaches kids at a very young age on how to play instruments. And so we're looking at, we have this local talent, this incredible local talent that, and that's one of the advantages of having the access to the college, is to have our own people involved in that human resource for children. The whole concept of teacher, in my mind, as a traditional concept of teacher, is someone who fire hoses knowledge versus a person who coordinates a student's knowledge, and the student is doing the working and the student is doing the learning. So the whole concept is looked at in an advisory capacity, where the teacher, now an advisor, is coordinating learning, not just spitting out the whats, but coordinating the what, the when, the where, the how, and the why. Parent and community involvement, we know enough about the research of that. Involved parents have kids who do well. And we talk about charter schools, and charter schools really don't do much better than regular public schools, but the ones that do, you are picking schools, and kids are going into schools with parents who want their kids to do well. So they're already a step up. So I'll talk about this in a moment, about selection of kids and how it's really important not to have any bias in getting the kids in. So we need to be successful with children who don't have parent support, because we have a lot who don't. Expeditionary learning is something that I think is really important. We have very successful models right now. We have School 58 that is very successful with expeditionary learning. School Without Walls has been involved with expeditionary learning. I'm sure there are others, but 58 is talking about expanding to do K-12 expeditionary learning. And the element with service to society is incredibly important. We are all responsible for all of our children, whether or not we are in the suburbs or in the city. We're all responsible for all of our children, and that we can extrapolate to the children of the world. And that's where we talk about the children learning about their global responsibility. My wife Joanne and I work in Africa. We're there 2 months out of the year, and we spend a lot of time in the city schools and in the suburban schools engaging children here about what their responsibility is to the poor of the world, because they know that 2/3 of the world is starving and that we are the 1/3 who are blessed. So the whole issue of social justice, which I'm getting to, and service to community, is incredibly important in a school that encompasses the region and looks at education as democratic. It goes without saying that what we have now as measurement is a complete failure. If we were to look at what we've done over since 2001 with No Child Left Behind, look at the number of children who are not getting diplomas. The English language learners, who used to be the highest minority group of diploma earners, are now the largest group of dropouts because of the way we're measuring. Fewer special education children getting diplomas. And minorities, African Americans and Hispanics, the gap of diploma earning between whites compared to whites is an absolute outrage. And after 7 years, one would have thought that if that were something that works, it would have done something by now. And it has, and it's gone the wrong way. There's plenty of research to back that up. Education, learning is purposeful, real, not simulated. I spoke about that a little earlier. We need to get kids involved in real projects. If we're going to teach democracy, we need to get kids involved in government and fighting real issues. If they want to talk about an issue, for example, of racial profiling, is there racial profiling? Okay, let's discuss it with our students, and let's go to a city council meeting, or let's go to a legislative meeting and actually participate and learn government through the real thing, not through simulation. That's a critical element to this whole issue, is that it's the real thing, not the what, the who, what, the when, where, and the why. Teachers, students engaged intellectually, emotionally, and physically. It's the whole package. Again, there has to be an investment, a total investment by students and teachers, and that means doing more than simply lecturing. It doesn't work. Self-discovery. School should be about helping children find themselves and find their way and find what they're good at. Again, that's unimportant as it sits right now in schools. What did you get on your ELA? I'm a 4. I'm a 3, or I'm a 2. When we have kids who label themselves by numbers of what the tests are, we know that that's pretty sad, and we know that that's happening. We need to have kids discover themselves. And curriculum without borders. That means that a classroom is not the best venue for learning. When we talk about internships and shadowing and real life learning, going out into the world, as I mentioned with social studies, and going out into government, see how government works, going out into industry, see how industry works. That takes the classroom without borders concept to where it belongs, so that education is something that's real and it goes right out into the world. So the actual classroom space becomes less important than it has been traditionally.